Trump has previously hinted at wanting to acquire Greenland, sparking strong opposition from its leaders. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Force's flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Force's flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32-DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
WESN.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. We're here again, another beautiful morning, and we have an amazing show planned for you all today.
Yes, so I'm Jada McCall.
I'm Naomi Magnish.
Yeah, your host again for AM Prime. I do hope that you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful morning and that it progresses into being a wonderful day.
Yes.
Right? So, as she said, we have a fun-filled, jam-packed show for you guys as per usual, and we hope that you stay with us throughout the whole entire thing and that we have a fun time today.
So our first discussion, we're talking about the newly sworn-in Prime Minister. I think it's getting old to say newly sworn-in. It feels like he's been here for some time.
Yeah, because he's been doing quite a bit, but stating quite a bit, but it's still quite new. So yeah, newly sworn.
So Prime Minister Stuart Young has proposed the creation of a Ministry of Implementation and Efficiency, or Ministry of Efficiency and Implementation, aiming to streamline government processes and reduce bureaucracy. However, this announcement has sparked debate with political analysts questioning whether this initiative is truly innovative or simply a repackaging of past policies. So joining us this morning to discuss this is political analyst Dr. Shane Mohammed, who has raised concerns about the necessity of this new ministry, its resemblance to the People's Partnership's past initiatives, and whether it signifies real change or just political posturing. Good morning, Dr. Mohammed, and welcome back to the program.
Good morning, ladies. How are you all?
We're doing great. We're doing well.
So you've described the Ministry of Efficiency and Implementation as a rehash of previous United National Congress policy. Can you elaborate on the similarities you see between this and past government initiatives?
So one of the things that it caught my attention was that in 2015, when the government changed and this administration came into office under Prime Minister Rowley, one of the first things that came to my attention was that under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, when I say I talk about the country, there was a policy initiative that was turned into practice, and it was called from red tape to red carpet.
Yes.
And what it sought to do was to improve government efficiency as it pertains to how government did its business and how people were able to conduct business with the government, including foreign direct investment. Now, why is this important? Is because at the time, during the period 2013 to 2016, I served on the board of the Trinidad and Tobago Free Zone Company Limited. And under the remit of the TTFC, we were members of 9 members of that board, and we were responsible for approving companies, organizations, foreign entities, local entities that were interested in doing business in Trinidad and Tobago, setting up business in Trinidad and Tobago under the Free Zones Act, where we assessed the company, we interviewed the prospective business owners, and made recommendations to the minister as to whether the particular entity would have been a vital source of revenue generation and direct investment to Trinidad and Tobago. By the time I demitted that term of office, there were almost 100 and something, maybe about 106 or 110 companies that were listed for approval that we had sought out, and many of them were coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, and a few of them, a significant number of them were coming out of England. Now, it was on the desk of a new minister. It had been assessed by a previous board. The recommendations had been made. The due diligence had been done. Only to realize that none of those approvals were done. The minister reduced the board at the time from 9 members to 3 ministers. And the ease of doing business had reverted back to being paper-based, being long, drawn out, having to file documents online, waiting, having to come to Trinidad to do it in person for simple things that would have been done in a manner to engender public trust and confidence, international confidence in our system, where at least 2 of the investors said to us as feedback that because the process had become so bureaucratic, had been reversed, and where it would have taken anything between 2 days and 5 days to be registered, to get your business registered in Trinidad and Tobago, and to about 3 to 4 weeks to get the business up and running in Trinidad and Tobago. It had been reverted back to an 8 to 9 to 10, in some instances 3 months going back and forth between Trinidad and Tobago and the respective home nation of the investor. So much so that businesses started to look outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and 2 businesses in particular moved their business to Barbados, citing that the efficiency in doing business with the Bayesian government was much more welcoming, because at the time Barbados was going through a period where they were looking for people to come into the island and invest their money and set up business to boost economic growth because they were going through economic hardship. So that's just one example that I can give you. The process of TT BizLink and TT Connect in particular, those two platforms were huge platforms that were aimed towards reducing the wait time for simple things like a death certificate, a birth certificate, registration of one's business, several documents that one would have submitted into the portal for approval to get something from going into a concept into an action. So, you can't want to revert back to old practices and then 9 years after come and you want to talk about a Ministry of Implementation and Efficiency.
But would it be the same practices that they would be using? Because people argue that we don't have the proper public service rules and regulations, and I would argue the social attitudes to be able to sustain this type of ministry. But it coming out to the ministry of, the office of the Prime Minister, does that make a difference, or is that just fancy words?
No, I mean, it's just fancy words, because at the end of the day, the heart of the operations of a government is not vested solely in the ministry, in the office of the Prime Minister. The office of the Prime Minister, for me, unless you have the proper frameworks in place and the proper monitoring systems, what you're doing is bottlenecking everything into the office of the Prime Minister, and you're creating something where it may add to the bureaucracy that needs to be, that the same efficiency and implementation that you are seeking to work towards may simply be, if it's not conceptualized effectively and the communication plan is not done effectively, and the mechanisms by which this monitoring and evaluation system is going to be done is going to end up bottlenecking at the office of the Prime Minister, which can cause a bigger problem. What needs to happen is that there needs to be a synchronization, there needs a platform by which, and a portal which people can access and know that when they put in the information. So for example, let me give you one thing that irritates me. When families, when homes, when persons are faced with the death of a loved one. For example, let me tell you about what happens in Princestown. When someone in Princestown dies and they have to, it's not an easy process. One of the things that we should do in this country is that when families are grieving, and when families are having to deal with the emotional aspect of dealing with loss, the physical aspect of dealing with loss, the mental aspect of dealing with loss, you can't tell me that the system it's so backward that you have to designate one or two persons in that family to start doing the running around. And the running around in the Princestown area takes an entire day to 2 days, sometimes delayed by when you start the process of getting the registration and the debt, which is a bacchanal by itself, is that the individual is exhausted at the end of the process. It is an ongoing process that sometimes extends into 2 days. What should take a couple hours tends to take sometimes 2 days. And it starts with the simple absence of of an entity in Princestown, in the district of Princestown, to register that death, and then to get the other parts of the other aspects of that preparation for a funeral in place. You have to send somebody. 1 minute you tell somebody, and it's how you say it. It's not here. It's go to Rio Claro. So somebody journeys from Princestown, goes to Rio Claro, gets to Rio Claro. Rio Claro says it's not here. You have to go to Pinal. But that's madness, right? So that's just a very simple. But people tend to take that for granted. But when you think about it go down to the ground, what the people are dealing with, what households are dealing with, because people die every day, right? You have to consider, where's the macro plan and where the bigger picture of the Ministry of Legal Affairs to decentralize and to effectively cater for a simple activity of ensuring that there's personnel, there's apparatus, there's efficiency in someone being able to not have to hustle through an already difficult scenario of registering the death of a loved one.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that, based on what you're saying there, I mean, this could be a step in the right direction if it's executed properly, you know,
and more so, it has to be done from within. And I was listening, so you don't have to listen to all of these political meetings to be able to get an idea of what people are saying. Dr. Ruda Muninal, who said it last night, he said that in the individual ministries were accountable for what they were doing and how they were doing it, and they were to ensure that they were effectively and efficiently performing their jobs to ensure that the lives of those who are seeking their services from the public that was seeking the services of the government through the various ministries did not have to go through a hassle or go through a complicated process. So, for example, another issue that I have and I could tell you from, as a citizen experiencing these things, how traumatic it is, how frustrating it is, how angering it is. When you do the process of triage within the health sector, and that's when you get to the bottlenecking of triage within the San Fernando, I could use the San Fernando General Hospital. I've been there, I've seen it. It is irking. It causes you a level of mental anguish for both the patient and the relatives. And then you are dealt with a frustrated system of doctors, a frustrated system of clerks, a frustrated system of nurses who are unmotivated, underpaid, overworked, stressed out, running 24 hours, sometimes more than that, sometimes limited to 2 or 3 personnel. So I will also say this cannot be simply a statement made that it's going to be a ministry. It has to be done beyond a ministry, because the People's Partnership Government established a monitoring and evaluation unit through the Office of the Prime Minister, but they were monitoring and evaluation, and there are monitoring and evaluation units within each ministry that focus on the work of the ministry, the policies and the projects, the processes from where a policy goes from policy to a project and to implementation, and how and having the dialogues and the discussions with the different stakeholders internally and externally to ensure that that project is delivered on time, within budget, and is working in the first, second, and third phase of implementation at its optimal level. So having a ministry of efficiency and implementation and efficiency is not just simply putting a ministry of implementation and efficiency. It has to do with an overall observation and an overall looking at the different sectors and the different ministries within the government framework, and ensuring that simple processes are not complicated by bureaucratic practices.
Yes.
Because are the women fancy of a minister or a government?
Yeah. So let's look at understanding or trying to understand, you know, in your opinion, what do you think is the motivation behind this decision to introduce this ministry? Because I mean, like we've said, we've seen good ideas before, and it doesn't always translate into action, you know, and it is a process. It's step by step. But why do you think he's implementing this or decided to implement this now?
Now, the thing about it is, it's very easy for a minister to get up there and to talk about and blame the public service and to blame public officers, right? But we have to take into consideration that we are operating almost 50 years after. Next year it'll be 50 years. 2026 will be 50 years since we're a Republican nation. And we are operating, therefore, under a 50-year-old average, because we're 49 years this year. So let's just say we're operating under a 50-year Republican Constitution, rules and regulations that fall under the remit of the Constitution, which includes the rules and regulations of the public service. And we have to take into consideration that over the years, different systems have been adopted. Since 1991 to now, different aspects of the public sector has been reformed and has, I would say, amended to include specialization, specialist positions in finance and auditing and IT and communication, because we fall under the Westminster Whitehall model. The Westminster Whitehall model clearly ensures that there's a dichotomy between the political and the administrative aspect of government. Therefore, that is why a permanent secretary is charged with the accountability and the accounting and transparency of this expenditure of public funds. A minister can't do that. A public officer, an accounting officer, a permanent secretary who's an accounting officer, and everybody who falls under the process of accounting for public expenditure, they have strict rules by which they operate. And to the extent that misappropriation of funds, anything that shows misappropriation or miscalculation of funds and has had the signature or the approval of a permanent secretary and is questioned in an Auditor General's report, and that cannot be accounted for, can result in those officers, 1, being suspended, 2, being suspended under investigation, and in some instances to the extreme, the law states that where that money cannot be accounted for, and that permanent secretary or line of accounting persons, especially PS, are found to be culpable, their assets can be seized as a way of payback of the misappropriation of public funds. Now, the law that protects how money is spent in Trinidad and Tobago is very, very, very stringent, and therefore that speaks to the accountability aspect when it comes to the public sector. However, in addition to that, the public sector has not been reformed for the last 50 years. So therefore, things that should take little time and should be the easiest thing, like getting a passport, like getting a driver's permit, like getting a birth certificate, like getting a death certificate, like getting a marriage certificate, like getting your BIR number, your NIS number, when you go to the NIS office and you have to get how much contributions you've made over a couple of years, if you've had a company registered, the certificate of compliance, the certificate of registration, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yes.
But all of these things should be so easily accessed that there should be no long lines, frustration, and bottlenecking of this. But all of that speaks to efficiency and implementation. But it cannot be vested in solely in one minister and one ministry. So what the minister going to do? Walk around with a big stick asking all the ministers in cabinet, this process done, that process done. No. Yeah, Stuart Young as minister in the office of the Prime Minister has had ample time, because he's had the confidence of the former Prime Minister to speak with his cabinet ministers and look at institutions, look at apparatus, look at systems and say, boss, Prime Minister, this is not working, we need to fix this. This is not working, we need to fix this. What has happened in all this time? You've been so busy doing what? Negotiating over dragon gas that you haven't focused on the implementation and efficiency of the government services? Or is this something that you've now realized and it wasn't a priority for the former Prime Minister, so you're now picking up the mantle to run with it at this 11th hour?
Which begs the question, if it's just for political or election.
Well, on the other hand, you have to question whether it is part of having the part of a dialogue and a part of a narrative that is going to align to what the President in the United States, President Trump, is doing with regard to the Department of Government Efficiency, which Elon Musk is charged with the responsibility of cutting costs and cutting, and government efficiency doesn't involve cutting costs and cutting personnel, but maybe repurposing, realigning, redirecting, and that sort of thing. That will not, you see, it may be easier, and even under DOGE, the United States President is getting a kickback, a pushback, because there are certain things that he has to take into consideration constitutionally that he will not be able to just simply dismantle, or he may have to find ways in which to circumvent, he may have to leap over and that sort of thing. So he's also trying to sound as if he is within the alignment to certain philosophies of the U.S. president, taking into consideration that Trinidad is under the spotlight, it's under the microscope.
Yes, because, I mean, that was my next question. Like, do you think this is an attempt to align with international models? And, I mean, if so, why?
Well, if you one of the reasons why is that it's an admission that all of the apparatus that you would have dismantled from the previous administration, all of these systems that you would have had from the previous administration that was working, and you just, for the purposes of we are new, we are different, they didn't do nothing right, they thief the money. That narrative is that we wiped the slate clean, and then we didn't take into consideration, wait a minute, this was actually a mistake. So it could very well be a nuanced admission that they did nonsense by dismantling certain things that were working out of political, I don't want to say bad mind, but because of political opposition, rivalry, and therefore the belief that nothing that another government did or did or had been implemented was good. That's not true. I will simply say there are certain things that this administration has been working on, and it would have been a continuation, but even blown up to a greater extent under their remit, which is the Ministry of Digital Transformation. If I have to advise the opposition, if they come into office on April 29th, one of the ministries that I would say to them, listen, I don't think that you should dismantle it. It is something that is important. It has reached a very long way in terms of digitization, in terms of aligning with the philosophy that Mrs. Pasal-Bisessa have, that in the public health sector, there should be a complete digitization of medical records across the board, and access to those medical records across the boards in public and private sectors, to be able to correct accurately and effectively and efficiently diagnose or continue the diagnosis and the treatment of a patient, regardless of where they present themselves, by just putting in their name, their specific number, and that sort of thing. It would work, right? So the Ministry of Digital Transformation is one of the ministries I would advise any new government to not dismantle, but there's human work that's been done there. There are several of my students that I know that have pursued their MBAs that speak very highly of the work that has been put in over the years, the extent of the work that has been put in, and it is being implemented in a phased process. It would be completely and absolutely irresponsible of me as a political scientist, but somebody who also understands public administration and the workings of the public sector, to agree that that ministry should be dismantled and all of the work just sent down the drain. So that's not how proper governance works. Governance is about also recognizing what has been done by a previous administration, the public expenditure and the monies and the public taxpayers' dollars that has gone into the work of that, and the extent of work in that particular ministry, and utilizing and capitalizing on the work done, the foundation set, to blow it up for the greater good of the nation.
You would have referenced the scrapping of the people's partnerships from red tape to red carpet.
Red carpet.
Right. Do you believe that the government is now trying to reverse that decision now under a new name?
Yeah, you see, the thing about it is yes, because at the end of the day, from red tape to red carpet was a platform and a slogan where the Ministry of Trade and Investment saw an opportunity to create a platform where we moved in the direction from having to run down the road every Monday morning and line up in legal affairs, or line up in passport office, or line up like hog and vagrant, and beat the hot sun. And it is ridiculous that in 2025 that we have to go and get up 4 a.m. morning, as the old people like to say, and wait to get a passport appointment, sit down for a passport appointment, and you're there for 5 hours and for a 2-minute process, right? So I believe that what the government has done is a disservice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago by creating an unnecessary bureaucracy and unnecessary process by which we could have gotten far more foreign direct investment and international company investment in Trinidad and Tobago than we would have gotten, as compared to what we've gotten now. Because there has been complaints by international businessmen interested in Trinidad and Tobago that the process is far too long and drawn out. It's ineffective. It is expensive because people have to spend money to come here. You have to present yourself. If you have to present yourself, and you know that when you present yourself, you're walking out with a certificate of incorporation in a matter of hours, and the system allows you to put in the documents before you get here, and you know there's a process that is effective, then people will be flocking here. But if it's a headache and a heartache and a waste of time and a waste of money, they go to a country that is far more effective and efficient.
So in a TT Newsday letter to the editor, former MP, Harry Potter, would have called you out. He would have said Dr. Mohammed did not do any research to find any available data with respect to implementation of government policies in the public service. He goes on. He may as well did not have the experience in such matters. Do you have any comment on that?
After everything I just belted out,
Just asking.
But in your opinion, after everything I just spoke about with you all, you think Harry Potter making sense now?
I don't want to give my opinion on that.
I'll tell you this, right? At the end of the day, I understand the grievances that Mr. Partap has with the current opposition leader. I understand how he feels as it pertains to certain actions, inactions, certain emotions are running high because it's election. But I wouldn't talk about something I'm not aware of. I start in the Ministry of Justice. I understand what we did with regard to the Ministry of Justice and the reforming of the criminal justice system. I could talk about the monitoring and evaluation unit at the Ministry of Justice and the work that was done with regard to prison reform, with regard to electronic bracelet, electronic monitoring, duty counsel, and the list goes on. All of which fall under the remit of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs now, right? And the Ministry of National Security. I could speak to the Ministry of Health because of the National Health Card, of which I worked on with the ministry as a member of the implementation committee. Yes. The long-term goal that we had with regard to the National Health Card, translating from CDAP, expanding, I should say, from CDAP into the public hospitals and the digitization of the public hospitals using the Children's Hospital and the infrastructure, IT infrastructure that is there. The idea of creating a digitized hospital where doctors were given the opportunity to walk around with their tablets, taking their tablets and looking at who this patient is, what this patient's history is, and how we should go about diagnosing, rather than walking around with a file or having a file transferred from San Fernando General, Port of Spain General, Arima Hospital, as the case may be. It was about the digitization of all medical records across the board through utilizing the National Health Card, which I worked upon. How am I able to talk about from red tape to red carpet, what TT BizLink and TT Connect meant, how it worked, what it was supposed to do, how it was supposed to increase efficiency and limit bureaucracy, how it was supposed to attract foreign direct investment, what we did at the Trinidad and Tobago Free Zone Company Limited. Well, you think I just pull all these ideas out of my back pocket, just?
No,
you see, at the end of the day, I don't want to get into a tete-a-tete with a former politician who has a grievance with the opposition, because his son was part of that government, and his son is fully aware of the kind of work that was done at that point in time. Yes. So miss me with the nonsense.
Miss me with the nonsense.
So, Philip Alexander, I want to just get your view on this. Philip Alexander, he has gone as far as to say that this ministry is just a tool for bullying. Do you think there's any merit to that claim? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, it all depends on... So there were certain statements that were made by Dr. Rowley. And you have to understand that there's a dichotomy of public administration that a politician cannot cross. It's a very thin line, and you cannot cross it because it clearly distinguishes the role and responsibilities of the minister and the role and the responsibilities of the permanent secretary and the technocrats. The role of the minister is to set the policy agenda. That comes from the political aspect of things. The role of the minister is to implement what were the ideas and the thoughts that were put into the manifesto in alignment with their respective ministries and in alignment with the decisions taken at the cabinet level. Once that cabinet approves that policy, and it is sent back to the ministry for implementation. It then is passed to the permanent secretary, who then passes it to the relevant delegated authority to start the process of implementation. A minister can monitor, he can ask questions, he could, the PS at the office of the Prime Minister, who's head of the public service, is charged with the responsibility for oversight over all permanent secretaries, and therefore the Prime Minister could ask the permanent secretaries in the office of the Prime Minister to look into this or to monitor such and such, or we have a timeline in which we would like to have this executed, but they can't bully anybody. And therefore, if there is bullying taking place at the ministerial level, then it is completely and absolutely unethical and illegal. And therefore, public officers, that is why I maintain that while Dr. Fuad Khan and others are talking about the stringent measures of appointing people by seniority, our system in Trinidad and Tobago allows for persons to be appointed through an examination process that provides for not only seniority, but experience, expertise, knowledge, and understanding of certain things that will fall under the remit through rigorous examinations by a case study, handing you a case study, and sitting down and writing a 3-hour exam to execute and to answer the questions aligned with those case studies which touch on concern processes and procedures to be executed under a permanent secretary's remit. Now, that is one aspect of the assignment. It is a written exam, an oral exam, and another assessment. It's 3 steps before you get to that process. It's not simply by the... but on the flip side, it could also be by the stroke of a pen. Persons who are acting for a period of time can then be appointed into the substantive position because they've been in there for such a long time. Both systems can work. We can have a seniority and we can have merit-based. If we merge it together into one system that considers seniority but requires a level of merit-based and merit, will create a level of efficiency with accountability, transparency, and fairness, and allows everyone to be able to put themselves forward and go through the process, right? But then when you have people acting for umpteen years, sometimes you're acting and you turn the I can't say what I want to say. You turn the public sector into our version of Hollywood without the fanfare. Then you get a demotivated working environment. People get demoralized. They feel as though any day somebody could come in and take in the position, and they could get a moment's notice. Well, X person coming from so by so to take over the position, and you're like, what? Right? So that is a thin line that I will say has a level of legitimacy to the conversation and to the argument, and therefore one has to be very careful about where we stand as it pertains to appointments, as it pertains to promotions, and to provide a clear process where it is exempted from political interference. Because I can tell you that there are several persons that have become permanent secretaries that have raised eyebrows in the public service because of their alignment to ministers, and that is a very dangerous route to go.
Yes, I think I agree with your thoughts on this, because in my opinion, you know, the only way that something like this, it's implementation and efficiency. The only way it can actually work or be executed properly is you have to involve the public. You have to listen and understand concerns raised and to be able to be efficient, you know, and unless we get that, I don't see this ministry or initiative.
Let me give you a very simple thing, a simple example. We have a passport office in Port of Spain, one in Grande, one in Chaguanas, one in Point Fortin, one in San Fernando, and one in Tobago.
Yeah.
In a country of 1.4 million people, 1.1 of which are voting adults, right? You have 6 passport offices. Really? That makes sense? So let's just take, for example, Point Fortin and San Fernando. Don't you think it would have been good to have a passport office in Princestown so that it would be help with regard to the backlog in San Fernando, and it would create a different catchment area. So what we should have done and what we should doing, you know, a lot of people don't see it, but Mrs. Prasad-Bissessa spoke about growth pools. And growth pools should not speak about economic growth pools alone, but should speak to how we deal with people, access to goods and services from a government perspective. So we have Princestown. If we have taken Princestown and turned it into a growth pool where you have a proper Ministry of Finance, not just simply a warden's office, a proper Ministry of Finance or a revenue office down there, that you would have had a working for registration with company or a Registrar General's office in Princestown. It would have captured Princestown, Moruga, Mayaro, Rio Claro, Barapo, and environs. And you have a huge catchment area in there, so that it would limit the burden on San Fernando, which would then limit the burden on Point Fortin. If you had one in Siparia, you would have been able to capture the Pinal, the Debe, the Mon Diablo, and the list goes on down, and that in the south central area, I would have easy burden in Point Fortin.
Yes.
If you have one in Couva, right, you have Couva, you have Chaguanas, you would have been able to capture Chaguanas and Couva and environs in the central area. You have Port of Spain, you have that area in Port of Spain. I would have put one in Diego Martin, which is further down, so you would have easy burden there. I would have put one in Arima, I would have put one in Sandy Grande, so that I would have eased the burden as we go along the corridor in order to ensure, I'd have put one in Tunapuna, so that you would have eased the burden of the bottlenecking of these applications for renewals and for new passports. A simple service, and employ and then the question would have been, so where we get any money for that? Well, you employ more persons. People will want to become immigration officers because there's opportunity for job sustainability, promotion, and they can move from one area into another as it pertains to the immigration department. So you would have opened up the system where people would now have to not wait for an appointment for 6 months and 3 months. That is nonsense.
Yes.
So just move from situation to solution a little bit. How?
Yeah, I'll just give you one.
Yes, and that is one. But how can the people hold this particular ministry accountable? Because if it's not just, I don't want to say the PNM does go into power and they are able to implement this, and then say the UNC goes into power after, whoever goes into power after. How do we keep that process streamlined to make sure that if it works in the PNM, it will work with the UNC? And how can the people keep this ministry accountable?
Well, one, I don't agree that the ministry is important. I don't believe that the Ministry of Implementation and Efficiency is something that is needed in Trinidad and Tobago. I think what we need in Trinidad and Tobago is public sector reform. We need constitutional reform, and therefore we need to start having the discussion about how can we start. Either we start with incremental an incremental approach. So in innovation and entrepreneurship, we have incremental innovation or drastic innovation. I translate, put out the remove the word innovation, even though innovation is what is important in this aspect as well. We have drastic reform or incremental reform. And I think we need to start moving towards a system where, in the absence of constitutional majorities and in the absence of having, huge majorities in the parliament for any particular government, you have to start working towards incremental implementation. And that will include creating a block of legal minds, which include the which would include the Attorney General and other legal minds within the framework of the government, to start looking at different acts of government that are falling short in delivering what its original purpose was. And therefore also assessing through utilizing the different legal frameworks and legal institutions within the public sector to work in synchronization with ministers to be able to come up with the best possible solution. It could be amendments to different acts, amendments to different sections of the act, amendments to different regulations, amendments to different policies and processes, and that sort of thing. And then when you have what you can do, there's the monitoring and evaluation unit of let's just say the Ministry of Public Administration, where it could be vested in, and that we turn it into instead of the department or the unit, we turn it into the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation under the Ministry of Public Administration, where that person who is the director or the director general, as the case may be, is responsible for getting monthly reports and having monthly meetings with all the directors of monitoring and evaluation across ministries, right?
Yes.
To say, give us a status report. What does your data say? How are people responding to the different implementation of initiatives and plans and policies and whatnot? Have they been working? If they've been working, then what is the feedback on the working from both the people who are implementing and executing and the people who are receiving? So it's about also then opens up employment opportunities. It creates opportunities for young people to help who have degrees in public sector management and has degrees in political science that understands the system to be able to go there as field officers and work towards getting back information and also creating a huge another sister unit to the monitoring and evaluation, which is the research and development department, where everybody who falls under the remit of a research and development or research and planning are accountable for what the individual ministries are doing. So you don't need to have a whole ministry, but you can have a department that is set up with the proper infrastructure to ensure that there's proper monitoring and evaluation, assessing the implementation policies, and reassessing as the case may be.
You know, with that sentiment, it comes as though it seems like fluff at this point, because with what you're saying, it's like, we're going to do something about it, but hold on, we're coming up with something new instead of, you know, adjusting or working with what we already have to make the change or to create some sort of reform to better help the public or society. But no, let's hold on a bit, you know, hold on, let's come up with this.
And you would realize what I'm saying to you is it's something that it's not something that is alien to a government, it's not alien to a minister, and it is something that would have been realized in the ineffective execution of a policy. It would have been realized because we would have asked ourselves, so why have we stymied the economy? Why is the economy stymied from economic growth and development? Why is the economy stymied from foreign direct investment? What is causing this stymie? What is causing this stagnation? Why are we not getting people coming and knocking on our doors? And the answer is right in front of you. Your government dismantled several policies and infrastructures and drop the ball in monitoring and evaluation, drop the ball in efficiency and effectiveness. It was not the former administration, because you've been there for 10 years and there are policies that was generated and created for every successive government after that to take and build upon. But we can't go into government with bad mind.
Can we also look at the fact that, well, just the thought that this could be, I mean, this would be money going into a new ministry, a new, you know, whatever you want to call it. But instead of money that, you know, and it's money that we probably don't have, or they say we don't have, but it's going into something new instead of the money going into, you know, working on something that's
can this just be a different approach? Can this just be a different approach to get to the same place where we want to be?
But then it's unnecessary.
Saying the same thing, saying the same thing and doing it a different way is all well and good, because everybody comes to the table with a different idea, different perspective. Merging those ideas and perspectives and making it into the best possible plan that is futuristic, it is long-term. We are not thinking about winning just an election. It's about winning the election and making sure that what you say you're going to do is founded on good principles, on good good objectives, well-founded objectives, and there's a process by one could follow. Now, you're right. Setting up a new ministry is not free. Setting up a new ministry is an expensive thing, because one, it has to be gazetted. That's the first thing. You have to pull resources from different ministries. It takes at least, when the Ministry of Justice was created in 2010 by the People's Partnership Administration, it literally started by getting one floor at the waterfront building and one floor with very little, with a few cubicles, with a handful of persons that were pulled from different ministries, and an experienced permanent secretary who knew how to set up a new ministry, who knew about the processes involved in getting the different departments that are needed, in getting the different officers and public officers and human resource capacity pulled together from different ministries to create that. When you create a new ministry, there's a sense, and I've been there, so I can tell you, when you create a new ministry, there's a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of understanding, motivation, morale. You have to have a minister that is there, that is working not as an overseer or working as a big stick, but has to work in sync with the public officers to ensure that every step of the way they are part and parcel. A minister also has the role and responsibility to ensure that the workforce feels connected to the purpose and the long-term goal and the solutions that the ministry is going to create, that everybody who is part, from communication to finance to IT to general administration to human resources to monitoring and evaluation to legal, you name it, everybody feels included in the bigger picture, and they are all part of the whole. So saying it is just one aspect, but behind saying it, the implementation of something of that level also has to take into consideration the procurement of where you're going to house, it, the equipment you're going to need to house it, to make it effective, where you're getting the money to spend the equipment. Are you pulling equipment from other resources? And when you pull equipment from the other resources, are you then creating a deficiency where you're pulling it from? So you have to take into consideration, you're very right, money is also an aspect, but there's no need for something of this kind, because at the end of the day, you don't need a ministry. It can be done through a department, because you have the apparatus, there are the systems in place within the public sector and within the various ministries.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense what you're saying. I think I was a little bit, not like, I was like, it's a new approach, like we could possibly do that, but I hear what you're saying.
Let me give you another example so I can help Harry Partap to understand what I am saying, right? When I was at the Ministry of Health, one of the things I wanted to get done was that we had to have information coming to the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health, while we have the Regional Health Authorities Act, and there's devolution of power to different regionals, so North Central, Northwest, Eastern, and Southwest. You have medical, you have CUs, you have personnel, you have communications managers and whatnot. I put all communication officer managers together in a room, and I said, listen, the Ministry of Health must have oversight as to what is happening in your various regional health authorities. And the Ministry of Health shouldn't be the last person to find out about a crisis. They should be the first persons to find out about a crisis. It shouldn't be that a minister has been hears about it through the media, and therefore we need to create a one communication policy.
Yes.
So I am not saying that I want oversight over what you do, how you do, and when you do it. What I am saying is that we must all be singing the same tune. We must all have the information in front of us, and we have emails, and therefore we should be able to speak to each other, and we should be able to discuss similar policies. That is, there must be a unison in the policies across the board. So it must not be one policy that is, and I could have done it in comms, but there can be one approach in Northwest, a different approach in North Central, a different approach in ER, in Eastern, a different approach in Southwest, and then everybody doing something different. There should be a synchronization of processes and procedures, a synchronization of messaging, a synchronization of how we do things, how we say things, how we disseminate information, how we interact with the public, how we get their the feedback from the public, and then how we generate it into a report to the ministry and give the ministry an understanding of what is going on, X, Y, and Z. We must also have a reporting system as it pertains to crises, as to who are some of the first people that are informed of the what, when, who, and why, so that when the ministry is informed, everybody's in sync with regard to the information that is in front of us, the situation that is in front of us, how we go about addressing it, what has been put in place by the different authorities that is vested with the responsibility, and the way forward.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You understand? So where there's a political will, where there's a vision, They are the personnel that are charged with the responsibility to get this thing done.
Yes.
What we have had in this administration is a complete disconnect, not only between ministers and MPs and the public, but also those that are working within the public sector. And I will tell you, and I will tell others, that there's a very low morale. And that's one of the problems that this government has faced over the last couple of years, that ministers have become so, has become a force upon them. They've become emperors, right? I keep thinking the emperor's new clothes. But at the end of the day, they've become emperors, and they've given themselves, elevated themselves to a level above the people that work within the different departments within the ministry. And what we must also remember, that as a servant of the people and a member of parliament, you are also a servant of also the very people that you work with, because those are the very same people that will vote when the day comes. And if they feel connected to the minister, they feel that there's a sense of pride, there's a sense of encouragement, that the minister walks the floors, he is involved with the ministry. He may not be not necessarily directing the ministry or dictating the ministry, but he's encouraging, and he's incorporating himself in the different departments. When you miss him, he's downstairs talking in communications, or he's talking to legal, or he passed and he say good morning to IT. Those things go a long way. And why I could tell you it is because I saw it in practice.
Yeah. So we are approaching, we're actually over the hour now, so we do have to begin to wrap.
Yeah. No, but I do want to say really quickly, I mean, all we could do at this point is wait and see, if what comes out of it, and I agree with a lot of your sentiments this morning, a lot of your points that were made. It's true, and when you think of efficiency, you think of easier, make life easier, let it be simple, let it be, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, not,
Yes, so trust me, I'm all for that. I'm all for efficiencies, but you can't go and say you want to create a ministry and then go back on your word. So we have to just wait and see what it is that they do.
Let's hope for the best.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Sheikh Mohammed, for coming on and for sharing all of your knowledge.
You're most welcome.
On this with us. As per usual, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Same here.
Yes. So we do hope that you have a beautiful day. And
you too, ladies.
Thanks so much. And to our viewers, we're just going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll be right back with you. Stay with us.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Man arrested after crashing stolen car. PDP names candidates for Tobago general election. Voters divided on incumbent MPs' NACTA survey finds. And internationally, Greendot rejects U.S. visit amid takeover phase. Now for the details. Police in the Southern Division have arrested a man following a crash involving a stolen vehicle along the Solomon-Hotroy Highway. Around 1:30 a.m. on March 22nd, a 42-year-old man parked his Kia Cerato near a bar in San Fernando, but later discovered both his keys and car were missing. Officers later found the crashed vehicle near the Harmony Hall overpass and arrested a suspect attempting to walk away. Investigations are ongoing. The Progressive Democratic Patriots has confirmed its candidates for the April 28th general election. Party leader Watson Duke will contest Tobago East, while Curtis Douglas, head of the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association, has been selected for Tobago West. The ATFA has been vocal against the THA's handling of compensation for fisher folk affected by the February oil spill. A NACTA survey reveals mixed voter opinions on incumbent MPs contesting the April 28th election. While some PNM and UNC candidates are seen favorably, others face criticism. The survey also suggests lower voter turnout and internal divisions within the UNC over candidate selections. NACTA says former Prime Minister Keith Rowley stepping down has boosted PNM's chances, while new Finance Minister Vishnu Danpal has the highest approval rating among the recent appointees. Greenland's leaders are condemning upcoming U.S. visits amid concerns over former President Donald Trump's interest in the territory. Second Lady Usha Vance and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz are expected to visit, prompting backlash from local politicians who see the move as aggressive. Trump has previously hinted at wanting to acquire Greenland, sparking strong opposition from its leaders. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Magnish. Thanks for watching.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this,
we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Welcome back to the program this morning. So this morning we're continuing with a segment that you're familiar with where we introduce to you a candidate, and maybe it's from your constituency. As Trinidad and Tobago gears up for the upcoming general election, all eyes on key battleground constituencies, including Port of Spain South. This constituency has long been considered a stronghold of the ruling People's National Movement, with current MP Keith Scotland holding the seat since 2020. However, this election sees multiple challenges stepping forward, including UNC's candidate Victor Roberts and the Progressive Empowerment Party's Valmiki Ramsingh. One of the newest contenders is Dr. Winzy Adams, the Patriotic Front's candidate for Port of Spain South. She is joining us today to discuss her candidacy, her vision for her constituency, and why she believes the people of Port of Spain South should consider a change in representation. So good morning, Dr. Adams. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm very happy to be here this morning.
It's beautiful to hear. So, Dr. Adams, your party, the Patriotic Front, is fairly new to the political landscape. What inspired you to join this race, the political race, and why now?
Well, the thing is, we always want improvement in our communities, and I believe that our communities deserve better. I have had a first-hand experience of the kind of challenges that we face in the Port of Spain and environs community, in terms of healthcare, in terms of crime, in terms of just moving around, the traffic situation. The thing is, personally, in my professional career, I have experienced a high level of frustration with some of the systems. And I believe that if you are not part of the solution, then you continue to be part of the problem. And so I made a personal decision to step out and be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm. How does your vision for Port of Spain South differ from past, MPs and the issues that either have not changed or have changed? What are your visions for the constituency now?
I have a lot of vision. The thing is, Port of Spain is our capital city. Mm-hmm. It does not look like a capital city. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what the vision was. It certainly, if there was one, it just was not achieved. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we have a beautiful landscape. Mm-hmm. I went into the Sealots community recently, and that area is beautiful, seafront property. And the sad thing is, our people, the people who live there cannot see that because of their standard of living, because of, the way that they have to move about, they have to be afraid of for their lives. And it's unfortunate because there is so much potential for our people in communities like this. The vision is just really beautiful because that's a seafront property. That should be the space that our tourists who come off our large ships go to first for business, for restaurants, for jewelry, it has so much potential. And I think that once given the chance, we would be able to show the people the kind of potential that they are sitting on.
Mm-hmm. So some people might see you or your party by extension as an underdog for this election. So what is your strategy for gaining traction?
The thing is, we are not the underdog because we have been on the ground for the last few months. Many people may not have known that, but the people on the ground knows that. And so wherever we go, we are received warmly. In fact, when we went, I would reference Celots because that is within this community. I've been to other communities with other candidates supporting. We support each other. That's one thing we do in this party. You know, and so I was also supported in my constituency. And when we landed on the ground, we were swarmed by everyone who wanted to come out and welcome us. And so that shows me that we're not the underdog. In fact, I believe the results would surprise many, because on the day people will vote for where their heart is, and certainly it's not by chance that that is our logo, the heart. And so once you have that kind of strategy where, and it's not so much a strategy, it's just our mission. Our mission is to empower the people. And how do you empower the people? You have to connect with them. And it's not just something that you do for elections, but you connect with them because you care about their needs and you care about hearing their voice. And so that is what we have been doing for months.
There has been talk about voter apathy in traditional strongholds. Are you finding that residents are open to new leadership, or are they hesitant to have that shift in political allegiance?
I'll be quite honest. It's all about the age gap. We would see different dynamics depending on who we meet. And when we meet persons who feel that way or are hurt about all politicians, we understand. We understand the whole issue of broken promises. We understand that they may have had an allegiance to a particular body, a particular group, and they have been, they have been really put down in ways that they can't understand. Why am I loyal to this group and I keep getting oppressed or I keep getting hurt? And we understand that. And that is why we are stepping out in this way, because it cannot continue. I mean, the thing about politics, it's all about making promises, and you don't know what you will get at the end. Yeah. But one thing we know for sure is that we have been between what I call, for want of a better term, the devil and the deep blue sea. The thing is, if we go with the devil, we're not going anywhere there. If we go with the deep blue sea, our people will drown. The thing is, now we have an option, a viable option, that persons can now say, here what, I don't have to go one way or the next. I can go straight down the middle and see where that lands me. I think that they would be very pleased.
Yeah. What exactly in your experience do you think prepares you for a run like this?
What prepares me? Oh my goodness. I think my entire life have prepared me for a run like this. I have lived in the Port of Spain and environs community all my life. I lived all over Trinidad and Tobago. But I mean, I grew up in Laraval, and so I commuted through Port of Spain, going to schools. I went to Sacred Heart Girls as my primary school in Port of Spain. I went to Bishop Ansey High School. I worked in Port of Spain all of my life at the same school as my alma mater. And so I have always experienced what the Port of Spain people experience. In terms of my personal development, very young, I think when I was in university, I did a bit of drama. And I was just telling someone yesterday, I said, thank goodness I know what it is to be on a stage. Because that does not faze me. Yes. My training is stage. I love the stage. And it has served me well in terms of being able to connect with my audience. Yes. And in this arena, my audience, the people of my constituency, I don't have a problem connecting with them. I mean, from the time they see the smile, they're smiling right back. So whatever hurts that they went through, I can help them to forget and have hope again moving forward.
Yes. This is a question I like to ask. just to get where your mind is at. So if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities in your first year as MP?
Oh gosh, 3 alone? It's so many needs. And the thing is, the issues that plague my constituency is not unique to any other community in Trinidad and Tobago. But of course, crime is at the top of everyone's list. And for obvious reasons. I mean, people are dying in the country, and we want to live to be able to enjoy what the future holds. But the whole issue of gang warfare is a very, it's not simple. It's not a simple one. That issue is not simple. It's multifaceted. And I think it's deeply rooted in our historical context. I believe maybe we have to even go back to colonialism to get the answers. But nevertheless, the whole issue of when we look at inequality, we look at poverty, we look at social exclusion, these are the issues that a lot of our people experience right now. And these kind of experiences, you know, they create the environment for gangs to strive. And it's simply because our young people are disillusioned by the lack of opportunities that they have afforded to them. And so they may be attracted to the gangs as a way of survival. So that is one issue we want to look at, especially in my constituency. But it is linked to how our educational system have perhaps, unfortunately, and that is why I spoke about being part of the solution and not being part of the problem. Because as an educator, we see too well all of the systems that need to be improved. But we have failed our children. Because if we are saying that 5% of the population of our children are striving, then my goodness, what is happening to 95% of them? And it impinges on the whole issue of inclusive education for all. And even as I walk through CELATS, I recognize, because we were there pretty early before the news came over, we were there for a good time, a few hours well, and I noticed children who were not at school. I'm saying, oh my goodness. I asked the parents, what is happening with this child? And they would say, well, miss, the school up the road is filled, and there are no other schools close by. And I said, oh my goodness, we are in the capital city. Are you saying that you cannot get an educational center for your child? And I'm talking about young children. I'm talking about 5 to 8 years old. And the thing is, we need to look at expanding our educational access to our children, not just the schools. All of our schools are packed.
Yes.
But what is happening within the communities? There is so much scope for development of educational centers that will be able to accommodate more of our children. And of course, they would be closer, maybe walking distance from their homes. So the kind of cost that parents have to expel in order to get their children at school would be minimized. And we can utilize that. We have to look at smart schools, because at the end of the day, we are not engaging 95% of the student population in this country, because we're not moving with the times. It's simple as that. Yes. We are falling behind internationally because we are not moving towards the technological space that we are supposed to be moving. And so we're not engaging our children who are totally engaged by their devices. And what are we doing at schools? We're still using whiteboards.
Yes.
We'll set blackboards. Well, we're not going there, but you know. So those are the kind of ideas we have. Beautification is also a big thing for me, because we are dealing, my constituency, I'm so fortunate to have it, is the capital city.
Yes.
I wouldn't say more than that, but we have a lot of work to do.
All right. So I don't think we might want to wrap. Is that something we would like to do? What's one message you want the voters in Port of Spain to remember when they head to the polls?
Well, what I want to say is I was fortunate enough to attend an institution which vision and mission speaks to the empowerment of, well, in my case, of women who are capable of leading and managing change. And that is one thing that attracted me to this party, because the vision is the same. It's about empowering people to lead and to manage change. And so the one thing I would want our voters, my community, my people, our people of Trinidad and Tobago to know is that the power is within you to make the change that you want. You don't need to live the way you live anymore. You have a viable option. Please use it.
Viable option.
That
Please use
was,
it.
yeah, said it best. Well, I mean, Dr. Adams, thank you so much for joining us on the program. We wish you all the best in your work moving forward, and
The entire candidacy run.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I hope that you have a beautiful day. And with that being said, to our viewers, we have a little bit of an outro for you, something that we've been coming up with. I wanted to leave you guys, as per usual, with a little bit of a quote. Just give me one moment.
That's all right. The key to success is action, and the essential in action is perseverance. This is a quote by Sun Yat-sen. This quote highlights that success isn't just about planning or ambition. It requires consistent effort and persistence to achieve one's goal. So I think that, and it fits beautifully with the sentiments of Dr. Adams here. You have to push through and to have that change and to see success and to have a plan, So I think we can wrap with that. Thank you for joining us on AM Prime this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay inspired, stay safe, and we'll see you back again tomorrow morning.
WESN.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventists,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com.